The ants were always busy, storing grain, looking after the queen and baby ants, preparing for winter, and for the annual visit of the greedy grasshoppers. But one clever ant called Flick thought he had a solution to these problems. Could he succeed? Let's listen to the story now. It was harvest time, and all the ants were bringing in grain. Princess Ada was in charge because she was training to be the queen. One day during harvest, a big stalk of grain fell right on top of her. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Please forgive me, I'm sorry. It was Flick. He had knocked over the stalk with his latest invention. This is my new idea for harvesting grain. No more picking individual kernels. You can just cut down the entire stalk. Flick was always inventing things, but nobody, including Ada, thought they were any good. Please, Flick, just go, said Ada wearily. When Flick trudged back to work, Dot, Ada's younger sister, ran to catch up with him.
Hey, Flick! Flick! Wait up! I like your inventions.
Really? Well, you're the first. I'm beginning to think nothing I do works. I'm never going to make a difference.
Me neither, said Dot. I'm a royal ant, and I can't even fly yet. I'm too little.
Flick showed Dot a stone. Pretend that that's a seed. Now, do you see our tree? Everything that made that giant tree is already contained inside this tiny little seed. You might not feel like you can do much now, but that's just because, well, you're not a tree yet. You're still a seed. Suddenly, an alarm went off and everyone raced for cover. On the way, Flick dropped his invention next to the huge pile of grain he and Dot had been gathering. When he did, he knocked the pile sideways and all the grain went over the edge of a cliff. No, he said. Just then, the sky got dark and this awful buzzing started. It was a gang of grasshoppers led by Hopper, who was really, really mean. That's why the ants were gathering grain. It was an offering to keep Hopper satisfied. And now, you might say, he was a little upset. Where's my food? Hopper yelled. Flick hung his head. It was an accident? Hopper got this horrible grin on his face. Hey, I'm a compassionate insect. There's still a few months till the rains come, so you can all just try again. The queen didn't like it. But Hopper, it's almost the rainy season. We need this time to gather food for ourselves. It seems to me that you ants are forgetting your place. So let's double the order of food. You ants have a nice summer. Let's ride. With a loud roar, Hopper and his gang went buzzing off into the sky. Later, Flick was brought before the council, and Ada read the charges. Flick, you are sentenced to 1 month digging in the tunnels. Flick had an idea, as usual. We could find bigger bugs to come here and fight, and forever rid us of Hopper and his gang. Oh, I could travel to the city. I could search there. Now, Ada and the council didn't think Flick could really do it. But they figured at least he wouldn't be around to cause trouble. So they agreed. The next morning, Flick packed his things and headed off to the city. There was just one bug who thought he had a chance. It was Dot.
Bye, Flick. Good luck, Flick.
Meanwhile, in the city, P.T. Flea's Circus was putting on a show. There was Rosie, the insect-taming spider, and Dim, the rhino beetle. There were the clowns, Slim, Francis, and Heimlich. There were the acrobats, Tuck and Roll, and a magic act, Manny and Gypsy. But there was also an audience full of rowdy flies. P.T. Flea tried to save the show by announcing a brand new stunt using matches, lighter fluid, and fly paper. Flaming Death! The circus bugs tried it, and, well, let's just say it didn't go well, and P.T. got burned. After the show, P.T. dumped the bugs in town. You're all fired! The bugs went into a flimsy, dingy cafe. And guess who was there? The flies. They started making fun of Francis, a ladybug who's actually a guy. To hold them off, Francis, Slim, and Heimlich went into their Robin Hood sword-fighting act. They pretended to have swords, but Francis was really using Slim, and Heimlich was using a toothpick. Back to Sherwood Forest! Schnell, schnell! But it didn't work. The doorway was already crowded, so when the circus bugs tried to leave, the whole place tipped over on its side, knocking the flies out cold. It just so happened that Flick was nearby, looking for help. He only saw the end of the fight, but that was enough. "You're perfect! I have been scouting for bugs with your exact talents!" The bugs were thrilled. They thought Flick was a talent scout, and Flick thought he had found warrior bugs. Back at Ant Island, it was Dot's day to be on lookout. Using Flick's leaf telescope, Dot spotted him coming home with the circus bugs.
Flick! He did it! He did it!
Flick brought the bugs to Ada and the council, hoping to impress them. Plus, he was in love with Ada. "So, Princess Ada, what do you think?" No, wait. This was not supposed to happen," said Ada. Flick was disappointed, but not the circus ladybug, Francis. He and the circus bugs still thought they'd be doing a show. "Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls of all ages, our troupe here guarantees a performance like no other. Why, when your grasshopper friends get here, we are gonna knock them dead." All the ants cheered. To show how happy they were, Dot's class presented a picture showing the circus bugs fighting the grasshoppers.
"We drew one of you dying because our teacher said it would be more dramatic,"
said Dot. The bugs stared at the picture, and that's when it hit them. They weren't going to put on a show. Flick had hired them to fight. The circus bugs tried to sneak off, but Flick caught up. No, you can't go. I'm desperate." Just then, a giant shadow passed over them. It was a bird, and it was hungry. Flick and the bugs didn't know it, but Dot had been following them. To get a closer look, Dot climbed to the top of a dandelion puff. It wasn't a great move, because she took off into the air, and all of a sudden the bird turned and headed straight towards her. There was just one thing to do. Dot let go. The bird missed Dot, and she went falling toward the ground. Flick and the circus bugs heard the commotion. Quickly, Francis flew over and caught her. I gotcha! He caught Dot in his arms, but the force of it knocked them into a ditch, and a big rock fell on Francis' leg. The bird tried to follow, but the circus bugs lured it away. They had saved Dot's life. Suddenly, the circus bugs were heroes. Later, Dot went with her little ant friends, the blueberries, to see Francis, who was recovering from his injury.
"We voted you our honorary den mother,"
the blueberries declared. But it wasn't enough to make the bugs stay. They were circus bugs, not warriors. Then Flick had a great idea. It came to him when he remembered that Hopper was afraid of birds. Oh, this is perfect! Flick went running to the circus bugs and told them his plan. All right, we are going to build a bird that we can operate from the inside, which would then be hoisted above our anthill. He convinced the bugs they wouldn't be in any danger. All they had to do was keep pretending they were warriors and tell the council that they had made up the plan. The council loved the idea. Right away, the whole colony started work on the bird, and the circus bugs pitched in. When the bird was finished, they hoisted it up into a tree. Finally, they were ready for the grasshoppers. Ada looked on proudly. Would you just look at this colony? I don't even recognize them. And I have you bugs to thank for it. So, thank you. And thank you for finding them, Flick. Flick got all embarrassed. Me? He turned toward Ada, and she leaned down close to him. Somehow, the two of them got their antennas tangled. I bet you didn't know that ants could blush. That night, the ants had a huge party. Everyone was having a great time until the alarm sounded. Ada hurried to the front. Battle stations, everyone! This is not a drill! Someone was coming, all right, but it wasn't the grasshoppers. It was P.T. Flea, and he was looking for the circus bugs. Flaming Death is a huge hit! We'll be the top circus act in the business! Ada stared at the bugs. You mean you're not warriors? P.T. laughed. Are you kidding? These guys are the lousiest circus bugs you've ever seen! Thorny, the chief engineer, couldn't believe it. You mean to tell me that our entire defensive strategy was concocted by clowns? Francis tried to help. Hey! We really thought Flick's idea was going to work. Oops. Ada glared at Flick. After all the excitement, the bird had turned out just to be another one of Flick's crazy ideas. Before, Ada had thought she might be falling in love with him, but not now. Tell me this isn't true. But the bird will work, just... You lied, Flick. You lied to the colony. You lied to me, said Ada angrily. I want you to leave, Flick, and this time, don't come back. Flick was miserable, and so was Dot. She felt awful watching him leave with the circus bugs, but the ants had work to do gathering food for the grasshoppers. They hauled grain until they were ready to drop, but it wasn't enough. When Hopper came, he was really mad. You little termites! I give you a second chance, and this is all I get? Ada tried to explain. But Hopper, we ran out of time. It was no use. Hopper's gang rounded everyone up and herded them back to the fields. Not one ant sleeps until we get every scrap of food on this island. In all the commotion, Dot sneaked away with her friends, the blueberries. They hid in their clubhouse, where they overheard some grasshoppers discussing their plan. After the ants picked all the food, Hopper was going to squish the queen. Dot turned to her friends.
Stay here. I'm going to get help.
She tried to go after Flick, but ran right into Thumper, a scary grasshopper who was more like a vicious dog. He chased Dot to a cliff and forced her over the edge. She fell down. Then suddenly, she wasn't falling anymore. Her wings had finally sprouted. She was flying. Later, zipping through the air, Dot caught up with Flick and the circus bugs. When she told Flick they could still use the bird they had built, he just shook his head sadly. Forget everything I ever told you, all right? Dot, that bird is a guaranteed failure, just like me. Francis and the bugs disagreed. Kid, say the word and we'll follow you into battle. Flick hung his head and walked away. Dot picked up a stone and followed him, dropping it into his hand.
Pretend it's a seed, okay?
He looked up at Dot, and little by little, his frown turned into a smile. Thanks, Dot. All right, let's do it. They locked P.T. Flea in the circus wagon, then rode back to Ant Island. Flick and Dot rounded up the blueberries and slowly climbed the tree where the mechanical bird was hidden. Meanwhile, the bugs gate-crashed a banquet where Hopper had made himself and the grasshoppers the guests of honor. At first he got mad. Then he seemed to calm down. I guess we could use a little entertainment. Francis, Slim, and Heimlich did their clown act. And then Manny the magician took the stage. He put the queen into a box and closed it. And now, Insectus Transformitis! When Manny opened the box, Gypsy stepped out. High in the tree, Flick sprang into action. That's the signal! Flick and the blueberries jumped inside the bird and dove from the tree. Dot and the blueberries were in charge of moving the wings.
Up, down, and turn!
Hopper looked up and saw it coming. Ah! Don't let it get me! Don't let it get me! For a while, it went just the way they had planned it. But their steering must have been off because they flew past Hopper and crashed into the circus wagon. P.T. tumbled out of the wagon and saw the bird. He thought it was real, too. So he hopped to his feet and lit a match. Flaming death! The next thing they knew, the bird was on fire. Inside the bird, smoke was everywhere. Flick pulled the escape lever so everyone could get out safely. But his plan was ruined, and Hopper was furious. Where do you get the gall to do this to me? Hopper said. Hopper took off Thumper's leash, and Thumper beat up Flick. After a while, Hopper ordered Thumper to stop. Let this be a lesson to all you ants. Ideas are very dangerous things. You are mindless, soil-sucking losers put on this earth to serve us. As Hopper spoke, Flick struggled to his feet. You're wrong, Hopper. Ants are not meant to serve grasshoppers. I've seen these ants do great things. And year after year, they somehow manage to pick food for themselves and you. So, who is the weaker species? Ants don't serve grasshoppers. It's you who need us. We're a lot stronger than you say we are. And you know it, don't you? Then the most amazing thing happened. All the ants stood up to Hopper. As they closed in around him, he yelled, "You ants, get back!" Ada flew up into his face. "You see, Hopper, nature has a certain order. The ants pick the food, the ants keep the food, and the grasshoppers leave." Thousands of ants charged, along with the circus bugs. The grasshoppers were so scared that they ran off, leaving Hopper behind. "Come back here, you cowards! Don't leave!" The ants shoved Hopper into the circus cannon and were about to shoot him off the island when the sky started to rumble. Suddenly, giant drops of water exploded all around them. Flick knew exactly what it was. Rain! Seeing his chance to escape, Hopper grabbed Flick and flew into the tree. The circus bugs tried to rescue him but couldn't. Then Ada sneaked up from the other side. She snatched Flick away, and they raced off with Hopper right behind them. Dodging raindrops, Flick led Ada to the creek and hid her behind a rock. "I've got an idea. No matter what happens, stay down," said Flick. Then he stood up and turned to face Hopper. "No, please, please, Hopper!" Flick cried. Flick backed up into the brush, and Hopper caught him and started to choke him. "You think it's over? I'll get more grasshoppers and be back next season, but you won't." But Flick knew something that Hopper didn't. In the brush was a bird's nest. As a bird rose up over them, Hopper grinned. "Well, what's this? Another one of your little bird tricks?" But it was no trick. The bird screeched, took Hopper in its beak, and fed him to her babies. "No, no, no, no! Ah!" Ant Island was safe again, thanks to Flick and the circus bugs. But the bugs were still performers, so when spring came, they packed up the circus wagon. When they were finished, Ada called them over. "I want to thank all of you for giving us back our hope, our dignity, and our lives." Slim bowed. "And to you, Princess Ada, you have given us so much." He joined the other bugs, including Francis, who was crying, and Heimlich, who had changed into a very fat butterfly. And off they rode. Dot was sad to see them go. But things hadn't turned out too bad. After all, Flick was a hero, and Ada became the queen. Not bad for a bug's life.